On the roads of the ash waste there lumbers a beast, a creature of steel, tires, and armor, bringer of stale gameplay and woes upon the gangers of Necromunda. I tell you, the Cargo-8 Ridgehauler is the worst blight upon our game since Games Workshop's book release model. Hello everyone and welcome to Miniatures Rundown, Necromundown. Today we're talking about the thing we hate the most about Necromunda.
The Cargo-8 Ridgehauler.
Yeah. We hinted at this when we talked about our intros to vehicles.
Basically, I believe every Necromundown we've mentioned it.
Well, you know what? I hate this thing.
Yeah, me too.
Kind of.
You say that as someone who owns one.
I know, and that's what I'm going to get to. Because I don't hate everything about it. There's just basically one or two particular things about it. Mm-hmm. So, the Cargo-8 Ridgehauler. If you're not familiar with it, here's a picture. It's a plastic kit. It's a vehicle meant to be used in ash waste games in Necromunda. It's $90 for the plastic version. Mm-hmm. Usable by any gang who is not the ash waste nomads.
Because they can't use any vehicles.
And that's one problem that we'll get to. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about what it is first before we talk about what the problems with it are.
Okay.
So, this thing is tough. Mm-hmm. By default, with no upgrades, the front arc has toughness 9 and the side and rear toughness 8. It is the only vehicle with a 3-up armor save and comes equipped with, what number is that? Oh yeah, 6 hull points. A default handling of 7, which is good. And a speed of 7. Which is
stupid.
Yeah.
Sorry. We're talking about the stats, not how much we hate it yet.
Now, by default, it comes with 1 weapon hardpoint on the front of the cab with front and right arc, which is not fantastic. Mm-hmm. However, it is crew operated.
Yep.
So, and it does not have the dedicated gunner rule, which is interesting. It's also wheeled. So that's what you're dealing with by default. And all of that for 230 credits.
Which doesn't sound... Which sounds like a lot.
It sounds like a lot. But wait, there's more.
Count the number of times we say that in this video.
You can also choose to put a cargo load on the back of that Ridgehauler. If you don't put anything on there, that Ridgehauler is a transport bed, which means that anybody can stand on it. Which is a viable way to play it, by the way.
Yeah.
The runners on the side are also transport beds. But wait, there's more. For either 50 credits for a Minotaur armored container or 30 for Promethium Tanks, you can take a cargo load. If you don't take the cargo load, the back is a transport area, which means that fighters can stand on it without penalty of falling off. They can also do that on the runners on the side, no matter what. The Minotaur armored container, for 50 credits, gets you 2 more weapon hardpoints built in with all-around firing arcs. That weapon hardpoints are 25 credits to start with.
Yes. And then arcs are 15 credits.
You get 2 weapon hardpoints with all-around arcs built in on top of the armor container. You don't get any weapons. You gotta pay for those.
Gotta pay for the weapons.
But you get the points for them.
Yep.
Additionally, the Minotaur container, let me double check the exact rules. When you finish something with a cargo load, you get D3 times 10 credits in the stash for each cargo load you have. Because you can add trailers. We'll get to that.
But wait, there's more. Nah, I'm just kidding.
The Promethium Tanks do not give you the weapon hardpoints. And they actually have kind of a downside that if somebody shoots at one and hits it, it makes a blaze impact.
Yeah.
But it doesn't blow it up, which it should.
It should.
You get D6 times 10 for the Promethium Tanks.
It doesn't come up very often.
You get more credits for the Promethium Tanks. You also have a walkway on top that acts as a transport bed further.
Wait, so you get more credits for the cheaper one?
Yes, because you don't get the weapon hardpoints.
Still.
Each Promethium Tank is an additional D6 times credits, so that's plus the D3 times 10.
Wow.
So you get a lot more. It also, if you have anything with the blaze trait, a weapon with the blaze trait within 3 inches, it loses scarce or gains plentiful. Because you can just like put the
just hook up your...
So yeah, the Promethium one is cheaper, but gets you more credits. But doesn't get you the weapon hardpoints. And the Minotaur armor container also acts as an ammo stash that never runs out.
Which is nuts.
Right, and that's for 50 credits. So that's kind of the base package. You can also choose to add trailers for 130 credits each. Each one of those trailers adds 4 hull points.
On top of the 6 you already have.
On top of the 6 you already have. It's all cumulative. And each of those trailers can have another cargo load. So you could put another container on there with 2 more weapon hard points for 50 credits.
And how many of those trailers can you have maximum? I think it's
4.
4. So you could have a land train.
Now, you're never fitting the land train on a real table.
No. But you could have a land train that has 11 weapon hard points on it.
And each one of those weapon hard points gets to pick a different target, and they all get to shoot at the same time.
Yep.
So
Aim, fire, all.
right.
They're all dead.
That's the problem with this thing. It's the summation of its parts.
Yeah.
But now that stuff's a lot of additional investment.
Yeah.
The Cargo-8 Ridgehauler also gets to make a trade action like a champion, which means it adds +1 to your trade if you do that, and it gets to make an action. Only a trade action, it can't do other post-battle actions. The downside is it does have to be driven by a Guild of Coin crew, who are 60 credits.
40
credits. 40 credits. Do not count as a fighter for the purpose of your gang creation. And so, basically the Ridgehauler has a real default cost of 270.
Yeah. Because nothing else can drive it, so you have to have the 40 crews.
Guild of Coin crew does start out with 4 ballistic skill and 7s on the board.
Yeah, 7s on all its stats instead of like 8s and 9s for the crappy
for
ones.
the Scum Racer, yeah. So all in all, you're looking at a really tough package. What's the problem with this thing? Like, where do we start?
Where do we start? It's basically impossible to kill unless it fails a handling check, which is also possible to make not easy.
So let's do a little, in a vacuum, it's bad. When you start comparing it to your other options,
yes,
the main problem with the Ridgehauler is that it becomes a no-brainer for its cost.
Yeah.
In the Ash Wastes.
Sure.
If you know you're going to be playing an Ash Waste mission or could be playing lots of them, this becomes a no-brainer. So if you're playing an Ash Waste campaign, the new Dominion campaign and the new rulebook is all Ash Waste missions.
No, it's 50%.
It's a 50%? Okay.
It's 50% Ash Waste.
Oh, it's options. I forgot.
Yeah.
If you only have a few Ash Waste missions or if you're not playing Ash Waste, obviously this goes out the window. But if you are playing Ash Wastes, compared to a gang champion of similar cost, this thing is far tougher, but also being not much less offensive.
Right.
Now, you could say that, okay, this thing starts at a ballistic skill 4. That's way worse than a 3, or a 2 for Vansar.
Sure.
Not when you have 3 different guns that all get to fire at once.
Yep. 50% chance is bad. 50% chance times 3, significantly better.
Significantly better. One of the 2 default weapons it can start with, by default, because you can put anything on this, and you should.
Yes.
But you don't necessarily have to, because it can start with the heavy stubber, which is bad. Don't take that. But it can start with a grenade launcher, with frag and crack.
Yeah.
And that's an amazingly versatile, cheap weapon for 65 credits.
Yeah, it's way too cheap for what it is. It should be more expensive.
Way too cheap for what it is. Now, let's talk upgrades. There's a lot of upgrades you can put on this thing, but there's 2 very important ones. Number 1, you can put the reinforced armor upgrade on there, which increases your toughness by 1 across all sides. So now you are looking at a toughness 10-9-9 vehicle.
That's really stupid.
Really stupid. You can also put the all-wheel, forget which one it is, it's the +2 handling upgrade, because it's a tired vehicle.
So it goes from a 7 to a 5.
Better handling than a light or medium vehicle.
Yep.
With better speed than anything that's not an Orlok quad.
Or the Escher cutter.
Or the Escher cutter. Well, that's not a vehicle, that's a mount.
Oh, that's true.
Because dirt bikes and cutters, they have 8.
Yeah, they have 8s.
But the main thing is the problem with this is when you compare it to a heavy vehicle. Heavies start out at, 145 credits?
Yeah.
Not counting crew. So heavies start out cheaper, but heavies also have an 8+ handling.
Yep. And speed 6? No,
Speed
5. So it's slower, harder to handle, not as tough.
And you have to pay extra for all those weapon hard points or transport beds or whatever. Whereas with the Ridgehauler just gets so much stuff built into it that is amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, I guess if we're going to count the weapon hard points, we should include the 50 credits for the uniform competitor.
Sure.
Which worst case, now you're at between the base cost and the crew and the container, you're looking at 320 credits, which is a third of your starting list.
Well, you say that.
Except
But
for what problem?
the problem is, every single campaign, when you start out, you have 1,000 credits, and then 400 extra credits just for vehicles.
So, a Ridgehauler with base upgrades, no upgrades,
Yep.
a Munitorm container, a Guild of Coin crew, and a grenade launcher on its front
Is still less than 400 credits.
is 485 credits. Or sorry, 385 credits.
Yep.
Huh.
Isn't that weird?
Fits perfectly into just starting out with this thing.
Yep.
And that's one of the bigger problems. This is not something you have to build up to.
Nope. Yeah, if this was, we have talked about in our previous campaigns having it something that you have to like earn, like a halfway point or after so many games or whatever.
We have some ideas for solutions, but well, first let's talk about why we hate it.
Yeah. But it's just, I want to say it's a no-brainer.
Yes, it is.
It's such a like, oh, well, I'll just take that because it's the best option all around.
If you, now, like kind of funny, I bought one last campaign, I almost never played it.
Yeah.
Because I never got to actually put it on the table between random crews, and I just didn't play enough Ashway weapons.
That's true.
So, let's not say like this is always going to be a thing.
Right.
But, when there is a chance for vehicles, this is a thing.
A broken model's balancing factor shouldn't be sometimes you can't play it.
Right. And that's the big problem.
That's
with
the
it.
issue.
So yeah, let's talk about what the actual issues with this thing are. Brief note about the other two rigs. There's the Iron Crawler, which is the Forge World. Basically, it's an up-armored.
Yeah, less offensive, more defensive.
Yeah, it's got treads, it's got more toughness, and it has a firing cage, which you can sit and shoot, but you can't use any unwieldy weapons, which leaves out most of the best weapons in the game.
Yeah.
And otherwise, it's pretty much the same. It's also way more expensive.
What, 365 or something
Yeah.
like that? Yeah,
The
way
s-
more expensive.
The Squat Explorator, which was just announced, is also more expensive. Can also take cargo loads, but doesn't have as many weapon hard points.
Yeah.
Has some other fun rules. The difference is the Squat Explorator is only available to squats.
Yeah.
And that's kind of their shtick.
Yeah, it makes sense that they would get the tough vehicle.
Yes. Now, Mitchell, you're a player and judge of Magic the Gathering. And there is a certain line of thought that Magic uses about when cards become a problem,
Yes.
which is...
Oh, you sprung this on me. So there's a couple of lines of thought, but the main one is basically if it is in every single list, it's too strong and should be dealt with.
And the Ridgehauler is available to basically everybody,
Yeah.
except nomads.
Yeah, except nomads, which is again.
And even if you're a squat player, there's a very heavy argument to take the Ridgehauler over the Explorator.
Yeah.
Because they both make you credits back, but the Ridgehauler is not that much less tough with up armor,
Oh yeah.
and is faster, and can have more weapon hard points,
And handles easier.
and handles better. Especially with the upgrades on it.
Yeah.
So why, we've talked about what the Ridgehauler is. It's got all this stuff. So why is all this a bad thing? Like we talked about, it's a no-brainer as far as investment versus cost.
Yeah.
Not just because it's cheap, but if you're making D3 times 10 credits back a game, which is an average of 20 credits,
Yep.
you'll not make your credits back. It's not like this thing's going to pay for itself. But every time you do that, you have subsidized the cost of the Ridgehauler.
It reduces the cost with every single game.
Right. That you get to play it.
Right.
Which in the base Ash Waste campaign, many of those campaigns are not random selection.
Oh no. And also in the base Ash Waste campaign, I think literally all of them are Ash Waste games.
Yes.
Because of that.
There's one that has the option not to be. Or two. I think one can be Sector Mechanicus, one can be Zone Mortalis. Anyway.
Whereas in the Burning of Prospero Oranthian Succession campaign.
Burning of Prospero. Cinderak Burning.
Whoops. Burning of Prospero. This is a different
Space Wolf player.
Oh.
You never got over it.
And Thousand Suns, actually.
Never got over
Never
it.
got over it. Anyway, the Cinderak Burning campaign and the Oranthian Succession, half of them.
Cinderak Burning was where I played my Ridgehauler and never got to use it.
Yeah. Whereas when we did play our Ash Waste campaign, it was in every single game and it was the most annoying thing.
Yeah, and that's part two of what the problem is.
Yeah.
Like you said, when everybody starts using it. A squat Ridgehauler, an Enforcer's Ridgehauler, an Orlock Ridgehauler, and an Escher Ridgehauler and a Goliath Ridgehauler are all the same.
Yep.
There is no differentiation of gameplay between those things.
That is true.
Like, basically none. And to me, that's part of the problem. Because that's not what I come to Necromunda for.
Yeah.
I don't, like, it would be a similar problem if everybody took an Ambot.
Yeah, which at one point we did, and then we determined they're kind of bad. But that's another video.
Ambots have, like, limiting factors.
Yeah.
They're slow, they're close range.
Yep.
Kind of, yeah. They're
Whereas this is, honestly, depending on visible conditions, it doesn't even have to move.
Right. That was one of the problems we encountered, is that you just have a Ridgehauler would just sit in the middle of the board and fire all, aim and fire all, and anything that moved. And because those guns are higher,
yeah, all the guns are on the back of a truck.
And Ash Waste encourages less terrain, so it's actually pretty easy to just use them to shoot everybody. And if you've got grenade launchers on there, you just blast.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I'll scatter or I won't.
So the gameplay against them is the same.
Yep.
Now, you talked about it's almost impossible to kill.
Yes.
I don't often trust Math Hammer because it can kind of, like...
Yeah.
Like, for example, in the last campaign we played, on turn 2, a Enforcer with a concussion carbine flipped a Ridgehauler. It does happen. It's rare, but it does happen.
The problem is it's rare.
Yes.
Because if you give it the 5-up handling, you have to hit it, wound it, which is hard, make it fail its armor save, which is hard, and get it to one of the damage abilities that gives you a handling check.
Right.
And fail the handling check.
Right.
It is just the possibility as you go goes down and down and down and down. It's possible, but so is, one-shotting Layman Russ with, a twin las cannon if you roll all 6s.
Right. It happens, but you can't rely on that.
Right.
Which brings us into the other, I think the biggest problem of all, is that it has introduced armor skew to Necromunda, where there was not any previously.
Yeah, well, okay. That is about ash wastes in general.
Yes, but it's an exponential step higher than even heavy weapons.
Yes, I agree.
Heavy vehicles. Because heavy vehicles can get up to toughness 8, in which case you need Meltas to wound on 4s. And a strength 4 weapon will wound on 6s, and you need a strength 5 weapon. But with toughness 10, the only thing not wounding on a 5, there's one gun in the game, the last gun, or last cannon, that will wound that thing on like a 3.
Yep.
Frontally, it'll still wound on a 4. AP 3 with a 3-up armor save means that you'll still save on 6s. Even Meltas are bad against the Ridgehauler, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts.
And on top of all of that, the last cannon does 3 damage. Meltas do 3 damage. But with the way vehicle damage in Necromunda works, extra damage only equates to more dice rolled. Check out our Necromunda Intro to Vehicles guide. More damage does not translate to actually more damage.
Yeah, it doesn't remove more hull points, it just gives you a higher chance at a better result on the table.
And most of the results table only removes 1 hull point. There's 2 of them that remove 2 hull points. But those are rare, and you have to get catastrophic hits.
Yep.
Which means that a vehicle with 6 hull points is not just 2 bits better than a vehicle with 4.
Right.
It wouldn't be a bell curve. I don't know what kind of curve it is. I'd have to do the math, and I hate math.
Same.
But it's weirdly increased. So this thing, basically, it's very difficult to kill.
Yes.
Naturally. I don't think I've ever seen a Ridgehauler die to lack of hull points.
Nope. Same.
I've seen them be controlled. Enforcers say hi. Enforcers, by the way, ignore everything I'm saying because they have ways for getting around this. They're the only faction that does because they have concussion weapons, which instantly force a loss of control handling check and a -2 to that handling check.
Yeah.
That's the way you deal with these. We'll get to that later. But yeah, it means that it does 2 things. Number 1, the kind of weapons that you would normally bring against gangers are completely ineffective against this thing. You have to skew towards it. But the kind of weapons that are effective against a Ridgehauler are utterly devastating to gangers.
Right. Whereas something like 40k, where you bring an anti-tank weapon and it kills 1 guy, killing 1 guy in Necromunda is huge.
Which, to be fair, is an update, is something that 10th edition did that it did not do previously. The differentiation.
What do you mean?
The differentiation between anti-tank guns and anti-infantry guns.
Well, it's they increased it.
Yes.
A las cannon still only killed one guy, but
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
In Necromunda, killing one guy with a las cannon is very, very important.
oh yeah, and a las cannon, like yeah, it like turbo murders a guy, whereas a las gun will deal 1 damage and maybe give him a flesh wound. A las cannon will deal 3 damage, no armor save, that guy's dead.
Especially with the new mechanics where it will just add flesh wounds even if he doesn't die.
So rather than it being like, oh, my anti-tank guns are good against tanks and my anti-infantry guns are good against infantry, in Necromunda, anti-tank guns are just expensive and good against everything.
They're anti-everything guns.
Yeah.
So you end up with this weird situation where even the anti-everything guns are still not particularly effective against the Ridgehauler.
Which is insane.
But they're real. So everyone else has lowered effectiveness.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Ridgehauler,
Ridgehauler's sitting here trucking away.
and all of those anti-Ridgehauler guns, can go on the Ridgehauler.
Yeah.
Which is the problem we ran into, where we had these Ridgehaulers running around with multi-Meltas.
Yeah. The fact that basically it's things that are mildly good against the Ridgehauler are really good against everything else, including other vehicles, which makes you want to take the Ridgehauler more because it's the toughest one.
Yeah.
'Cause even if you take a heavy, you take a Melta into a heavy, it's gonna deal more damage to the heavy, and because it has less hull points, higher chance to kill it, and I hate it so much.
We talked about this in our vehicle intro. Necromunda already has a problem where like light and medium vehicles don't really have a place.
Yeah.
I don't like comparing the Ridgehauler too much to champions because like champions can go anywhere.
Yeah.
They're more mobile, they can go on cover, blah, 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 blah. But I feel like comparing the Ridgehauler to other vehicles is perfectly fair and valid because like the other vehicles, everyone has access to it. Everyone who has access to vehicles anyway.
Sure. RIP Nomads.
So yeah, it reduces diversity in gameplay. And it's also, your ability to affect the Ridgehauler is very low, which is not fun gameplay in general.
No.
You can, again, Enforcers say hi. Enforcers are the most fun I've ever had against a Ridgehauler because it's like, yeah, go that way. I'm just gonna keep firing concussion shells at you until something happens.
Right.
But it simultaneously increases the lethality of Necromunda while also decreasing the lethality of Necromunda in the worst, not fun way.
Yeah.
So that's the problems that we have with it. And we have seen this in our campaigns. We have, I think, 4 people with Ridgehaulers, including myself. I am guilty of running one. But that's the big problem, is that the best way to deal with a Ridgehauler is to run one.
Is with a Ridgehauler.
And put anti-tank weapons on it to deal with other Ridgehaulers. Because those anti-tank weapons are going to deal fine with other gangers if your opponent doesn't have one.
Yep.
And it's the only way, like, the way I played against Ridgehaulers was to bump mine into each other, and then we'd sit there and just shoot at each other at point-blank range every game. And eventually, when Cody and I played, we even just, our Ridgehaulers stopped shooting at each other. Because it was more efficient to shoot the little guys and try and bottle them out than it was to actually try and kill the dang Ridgehauler.
Because even with anti-tank weapons, it's very, very hard to kill.
Right. So, what do we do about it?
Like I said earlier in the video, we talked about some stuff that we could do. The easiest and worst is ban the dang thing.
No Ridgehaulers. No one's allowed to bring one.
Yep.
That sucks.
That's bad.
It's a $90 model. You bought it, you played it, you want to play with it. And you know what? Visually, it's a cool kit.
It's a fantastic kit.
It's meant to evoke the trucks of Mad Max, the war rig.
Which is awesome.
And it does that really well. I bought one because I love it visually. Banning it outright is not fun.
No.
Even as an arbitrator's decisions, I think you can't do that because the people who want to play them are just not going to like that decision anyway. So you also mentioned maybe banning it at the start.
Yes. So because it is purchasable with your vehicle-only credits,
Your starting funds.
It would be something along the lines of you can't get it until later in the campaign, maybe the halfway point.
Downtime point.
Downtime points. Or only after you've gotten so many credits, once you hit 2,000 credits, you can then, you have the notability or maybe reputation. If
Reputation based, I like.
So much reputation.
I have an idea for that one later.
Yeah. But there's also just the option of you can't purchase it at the start of your gang and you have to build up to buy it.
Yeah. I like that option a little bit because it does a couple things. Number one of the reasons, and we kind of talked about this, if you've ever played a real-time strategy game, or any video game with like building up your economy elements, one of the most important things you need to learn is that you need to start on your economy early. You need to build up your economy, build up your credit generation early. That goes for Necromunda. And the Ridgehauler, it's only D3 times 10, or D3 plus D6 times 10, which is a lot. But that adds up quicker than you think.
Yep. The earlier you buy it, the better it is.
Right. By delaying the ability to buy it, that stops the credit seeding early.
I agree.
It also lets people, like, we don't like the fact that you have to specifically tech against these things, but delaying its acquisition does let people do that.
That's true.
It means I don't have to start the game with either I'm bringing a las cannon, which only Van Sar can do.
Yeah, I think just Van Sar.
Well, Venators.
Yeah, fair.
I don't have to start the game knowing that I can't handle this thing.
Yeah.
And that's not like, this is the other problem, is I think that there's a joy to playing the Ridgehauler and knowing that people can't handle it, but that's not fun.
Oh, God, no.
That's not fun gameplay.
Yeah.
I have this thing, you can't counter it.
Yep.
Again,
Sucks to suck, bud.
enforcers love that because it's like, oh, yes, I can.
But they're the only ones that can.
Right. They are literally the only one with access to a weapon that causes an instant on hit, not wound, hit, loss of control test, and add a -2.
Yeah.
So it lets people have time to build up that thing. It doesn't fix the fact, though, and this is something we complained about, it reduces gang diversity, especially in regards to vehicles.
Yeah.
You know all those fun vehicle options? Throw those out by Ridgehauler.
Yep.
I hate that.
It's just the best one.
You could increase the cost.
Yeah, that is certainly something you can do.
That's one I like the best, but it's also the toughest to do right.
Right. It's the opposite of ban. It is one of the better choices, but man, is it hard to do.
Because first off, let's not kid ourselves. Nothing in Necromunda is costed correctly balance-wise.
No.
This game is a burning tire fire of balance that we love.
We say that as proficient lovers of Necromunda.
I need that on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Because lots of things are not balanced correctly in Necromunda. A plasma gun and a melta gun are both 100 credits, and one of those is going to serve you way better 90% of the time.
True.
And there's lots of little things like that. So you have to, well, arbitrate. You have to arbitrarily decide how much this thing should cost.
Yep.
If you're an arbitrator, you can do that, but you probably need to have some math to back it up.
Rather than just like, increase it by 100.
But I'm going to tell you the moment right now, the moment you try and math your way into finding a good cost at Ridgehauler, you're going to hit a wall where nothing makes sense.
Yep.
Math-wise, like with any of the vehicles. Even heavy vehicles are undercosted for what they are.
Yeah, true.
So that's doable, but hard to do. Honestly, it just probably needs some tweaking, and it might also depend on your play group and what you like to play. This one is one I came up with while I was writing the notes for this. And you could also change the way the Ridgehauler is used rules-wise.
Okay.
So, lore-wise, the Ridgehauler is owned by the Guild of Coin. And gangs don't really buy them, you just kind of escort them. Like, that's why a Guild of Coin crew is the only one who can actually, like, crew it. So, I was thinking, what if instead of buying a Ridgehauler, you rented it?
Makes sense.
Or maybe you leased it to
They're essentially mercenaries.
Essentially, you would, like, you could do this either on a campaign basis or a per mission. Like, you could make this part of the hired gun stick.
Okay.
You pay out credits to borrow a Ridgehauler. In turn for those credits, you get two things. Number one, you get a Ridgehauler.
That's pretty good.
And number two, if you succeed in your mission, that could just be keeping it alive or it could be winning the mission, you get a credit payout because you delivered your cargo.
That makes sense.
If you fail, your opponent gets that cargo.
Ooh.
So that's basically a gamble. And it's not a huge gamble because you're getting a Ridgehauler. But it's a gamble everyone has access to, and there's a risk to it.
Okay.
So you could still use your Ridgehauler. You could still put weapons on it. It would also, you could also, in that case, limit the weapons and upgrades to the ones available on the Ridgehauler.
Makes sense.
Because a Ridgehauler with grenade launchers is terrifying, but less so than a Ridgehauler with 4 las cannons.
Or multi-Meltas.
Or multi-Meltas. You'd have to play with the credit amounts here. You'd have to play with the payouts. You'd have to play with the risk and reward. But I feel like that's something you could do to let people still use them without bringing them every game.
I feel like with the way that it is costed, that might have been something that GW was toying with.
Because it's real cheap, ain't it?
It's real cheap.
Like, if you paid 230 credits to get a Ridgehauler. And then if you succeeded your mission at the end of it, you got 280 credits back. You made 50. You made 50 credits.
Right.
That's not nothing, especially in Ashwastes where the credit payouts are dismal.
Yeah, D3 if you're lucky.
Yeah, D3, not times 10, just D3.
Yeah.
So I like that idea of kind of like a rental thing.
Sure, I like that.
You could also use it just as an arbitrator tool, like as part of missions. It is part of submissions.
It is.
I feel like GW didn't understand how much people were going to take this thing.
That's fair. I'm not sure they do. Still.
Well, it's Necromunda. They put it out and they stopped thinking about it. They'll never think about it again until they put out the Iron Crawler, which is like, oh, how can we sell a better version of this?
Yeah, true.
So yeah, there's ways you can deal around this that still let people use the Ridgehauler, but man, it's kind of a bummer because it's such an amazing kit, but it dictates the play of the game in a way that no other model singularly does.
Yeah, it really sucks that we as players have to determine how to make this awesome model balanced.
Right. Yeah, and it is a shame. Any closing thoughts on this broken piece of crap?
No. I think it's a broken piece of crap, and I will say to the audience, look at me at my camera. We had 7 people in the last campaign. I am the only one of those 7 people that do not own a Ridgehauler.
And that might be a local holdout. That might be a local problem.
I'm the holdout. But that being said, with the missions becoming less ash waste and more balanced, it does even out a little bit.
Yes.
But it evens out from vehicles to non-vehicles compared to ash wastes to every other vehicle in the game.
Yeah, that's where because I know a lot of people have pushed back on that and saying, well, you don't get to bring it all the time. How often are you going to encourage someone on Reddit told me, how often are you going to encounter a fully kitted out Ridgehauler? And my response is, all the flipping time. Maybe that's just a me problem. But yeah, in like Cinderac Burning, or especially Vaults of Temenos and the new one, Ruins of Jardlin, it's only 50-50. So you don't see them in every match.
Right.
Unless you get unlucky and see them in every flipping match.
Yeah.
But it still is ruining the diversity against other Ash Waste things.
Yep.
I mean, if you want the ultimate joke, compare the Vansar Ash Waste Arachnirig to a Ridgehauler.
Yeah. 130 extra credits and...
And again, Necromunda not bounced on the best of days.
Yeah.
But when, even in Necromunda, something is this bad, that's a real problem.
That is true.
So that's why we don't like this thing. But it's not that we hate it conceptually, we just hate the execution.
Yeah, agreed.
And next campaign, we are certainly going to be trying things to rein it back in a way that people could still play with it, but it doesn't become an auto-include.
I do like the rental idea. I don't mind that.
We have to really workshop that. We might see a video on that if we workshop a little bit of an alternate way to play Ridgehauler. But in the meantime, the Ridgehauler is out there.
It is.
It knows where you live.
You got to deal with it.
It's coming for you in your sleep. And
it's surprisingly quiet.
That's the other thing. It's got a hell of a muffler on there.
I was gonna say it's electric.
It's a hybrid Ridgehauler. Run. The Ridgehauler runs on biofuel. Oh, you mean soybeans? No, he says he stuffs a person in the gas tank. Corpse grinder Ridgehauler. It's just got a giant grinder on it.
Oh my god, you gave me an idea now.
That's another thing. It is ripe for conversions.
It's great.
But anyway, the Ridgehaulers are out there, and we have quite a bit of experience with dealing with them. So next time, what we're going to talk about is, if you got to deal with a Ridgehauler, or any vehicle, how do you do it?
Yeah.
And you might be surprised at the best way to do this, because you're probably not going to see it coming. So tune in next time when we talk about how to take down vehicles, especially the Ridgehauler. Until then, I've been Josh.
And I've been Mitchell.
Leave us a like and comment if you liked what you saw. If you just utterly think we're wrong and that the Ridgehauler is completely fair and balanced and no one ever brings it. Maybe the $90 price tag for your group
is too much.
Yeah, maybe we're just rich bougies, apparently, who just shell out our hard-earned cash for these stupid plastic pieces.
Not me.
Yeah, you are the holdout. Hey, my list last time had a medium and a light. It had no Ridgehauler.
That's true. And you played one game.
Well,
that's unrelated.
That's unrelated. We'll see you next time.
Bye.